It started with silence. Not Meghan's polished, media-trained silence, but the kind that comes from shock. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, had just done what no one thought she'd ever dare. She released unedited photos from Meghan Markle's old yacht days, the very images royal insiders had whispered about for years but never seen. And the timing could not have been worse. Within minutes, hashtags erupted across social media, podcasts went live without planning, and royal reporters abandoned their weekends as if a national emergency had been declared. But Meghan, she disappeared. No statements, no comments, not even a friendly leak to a sympathetic outlet. Behind the scenes, the silence wasn't strength. It was heartbreak. A source from inside her Montecito circle whispered that Meghan never saw this coming, not from Fergie. They weren't close, but they followed the unspoken rule of royal exes. You may distance, you may disagree, but you never expose the past. Yet Fergie had torched that agreement, and she did it publicly, unapologetically. The first photo was harmless enough, until you look closer. Meghan, young and glowing, laughing with a drink in her hand on a Mediterranean yacht surrounded by what tabloids politely called international elites. And standing beside her was a tanned, relaxed Prince Andrew. The internet froze. Then came the second photo, a blurred but unmistakable moment of Meghan whispering something to Andrew, her hand brushing his arm as though sharing a private joke. This was the image that detonated the conversation. Commentators jumped in immediately, some calling it innocent, others claiming the body language told a completely different story.
But the question wasn't really about Meghan in that moment. It was about Fergie. Why her? Why now? And why drop the bomb herself? Royal insiders claimed Fergie had simply reached her breaking point. For decades, she'd taken hits for Andrew's scandals, carried the weight of the monarchy's mistakes, and endured comparisons to every duchess who came after her. What finally pushed her over the edge was Meghan's narrative of suffering, innocence, and victimhood, while quietly omitting her old royal connections, including Andrew. Fergie's caption was short and brutal. Some memories should never be rewritten. It wasn't shade, it was war. Meghan's name rocketed across global trending lists. Comment sections flooded with theories, anger, jokes, and pure confusion. Suddenly, the world was asking questions Meghan had avoided her entire career. How did she know Andrew? Why was she on that yacht? And why had that entire chapter vanished from all her interviews? Inside Montecito, Meghan's reaction was explosive. Sources describe her pacing, furious, blindsided, and terrified. Her image was built on control. Nothing leaked unless she allowed it. And now a duchess with royal credibility had just exposed something she couldn't spin, deny, or polish.
Rumors spread that the two leaked photos were just a fraction of a massive private archive Fergie had been keeping for decades, a silent collection of snapshots, interactions, and moments no one ever expected her to reveal. Within hours, speculation exploded. Some swore she had dozens more pictures, videos, and notes that could transform Meghan's pre-Harry past into a completely different story. And Meghan's team knew that if even a fraction of those whispers were true, the crisis was only beginning. Her legal advisors launched into panic mode, crisis calls, encrypted messages, emergency meetings stretching past midnight. PR specialists began drafting statements, each more cautious than the last, but none safe enough to release. Every word felt like a trap. If Meghan defended herself too strongly, she'd look guilty. If she stayed silent, she'd look calculating. And above all, she couldn't attack Fergie. Not publicly, not privately, not when the palace could see everything. Meanwhile, the palace stuck to its most powerful weapon, silence. Not a word, not a denial, not even a gentle briefing to friendly journalists. When the monarchy stays quiet, it's never kindness, it's strategy.
Their silence told royal watchers the truth. They weren't going to save anyone. Some insiders even whispered that the palace might already know what else existed in Fergie's archive.
As the photos kept circulating, the internet entered detective mode. Every detail of the yacht images was magnified: the angle of Meghan's smile, Andrew's posture, the proximity between them. Even shadows were analyzed like evidence in a courtroom. Commentators questioned whether these photos contradicted the narrative Meghan had carefully built: the shy newcomer overwhelmed by royal pressure, the outsider mistreated by the institution, the Duchess with a heart of gold. And while the world debated, Meghan's team collapsed under the pressure. Strategies clashed. Some advisors insisted on a bold statement. Others warned it would destroy her. PR executives suggested a charity push. Lawyers pushed for silence. No one could agree on anything. Then, without warning, Trevor Engelson, Meghan's ex-husband, began trending. Not because he said anything, but because he suddenly turned off Instagram comments and then vanished offline. That move alone set the internet on fire. If Trevor knew anything, and Meghan knew he did, his silence became just as loud as Fergie's photos. Inside Montecito, panic deepened. Meghan's team reached out to Trevor immediately. Those calls were not friendly catch-ups. They were strategic, urgent, and desperate. Because if one insider had already flipped, who would be next? Through it all, Fergie stayed detached and eerily calm. No interviews, no defenses, just silence and more perfectly timed photo drops. Each new image derailed whatever recovery Meghan attempted. Pictures of her laughing beside Andrew, images that looked casual but felt loaded without context, moments that could be interpreted in 100 different ways. The palace watched from afar, quiet but calculating. They weren't interfering. They didn't need to. Meghan and Fergie were doing the damage themselves, and Buckingham's silence only amplified the fallout. And the internet? It wasn't even close to finished.
By now, the scandal had morphed into something far bigger than a few leaked photos. It became a full-scale cultural spectacle, a long-form dissection of power, privilege, ambition, and rivalry within the royal ecosystem. And Fergie's slow, relentless drip-feed strategy turned the saga into a rolling disaster that Meghan simply could not outrun. Every time Meghan's team tried to shift the narrative, charity photos, elegant appearances, motherhood stories, Fergie dropped another picture. Another moment from the past with no explanation, no context, and no opportunity for Meghan to get ahead of it. Each release landed with perfect timing, hitting peak media hours so every outlet would pick it up instantly. Analysts called it the best slow-burn scandal strategy they had ever seen. The palace used these waves of chaos to strengthen its own image. Advisors pushed stories about William, Catherine, and royal charity work. They issued press releases full of stability, duty, and tradition. While Meghan looked frantic and reactionary, the crown looked timeless and unbothered. It was a brutal contrast, and it worked. Inside Montecito, Meghan's world was cracking. Her team worked through the night, reviewing drafts, pulling posts, and arguing about every decision. Some insisted on legal action. Others warned that a lawsuit would backfire and make her look vindictive. Meghan, exhausted and emotional, struggled to keep up with the pace of the scandal. Even loyal supporters began questioning her narrative as the yacht photos kept resurfacing.
The internet refused to let the story die. Memes exploded. Late-night shows mocked her. Celebrity podcasts analyzed every new leak. Commentators dissected her facial expressions like forensic experts. The photos became symbols, not of wrongdoing, but of contradiction between the image she presented and the image these snapshots showed. Fergie, ruthless in her timing, never released everything at once. She controlled the narrative like a conductor leading a symphony of chaos. Every drop reignited the fire, keeping Meghan trapped in a cycle she couldn't break. The palace remained stone still. No emotion, no commentary, just quiet redirection. Their silence was its own message. The monarchy remains untouched. Meanwhile, Meghan faced a sobering reality. She was no longer controlling her story. Fergie was. The photographs had become a permanent stain, a mythologized moment the public refused to forget. Even her strongest PR campaigns couldn't erase them. Every carefully staged act of compassion, every speech, every photo op was drowned out by the same two words: the yacht. In the end, Meghan wasn't just dealing with a scandal. She was confronting the limits of influence, narrative control, and personal branding in the face of a monarchy built to outlast every storm. Fergie's slow-burn assault had reshaped public perception in a way no statement could fix. And under the palace's quiet shadow, one truth stood tall. No one, not even the most famous, can fully control how the world decides to see them. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the wild world of fame and power. See you in the next one.